before we get started, we just wanted to kick it off with a video about public safety uses of mobile data, and then we'll start the session.
What is a smart city? Smart city is improving quality of life of the residents using technologies such as Internet of Things or cyber-physical systems.
FirstNet is tasked with building a nationwide public safety broadband network that's dedicated to first responders. As part of that, we also see a huge development coming down the road with Internet of Things, sensors, things that can be on the network to allow greater public safety and security for their communities and cities, such as the Smart Cities Initiative.
If the benefit is only concentrated, only focused in a certain smaller region, I mean, that's not as good as spreading it to everywhere in the United States, that everybody gets the benefit. That's, I think, what like FirstNet can be an extremely important player in the whole game.
Think about a fire situation or a major incident, a hazardous material situation at the port, for example. What you want to do is you want to set up sensors and video cameras around the perimeter of that incident, and you want to be able to stream the information from those sensors and video cameras. And again, you want to see it on the smartphones and mobile computers and tablet computers of responders involved in the incident. We need the priority, we need the coverage, both in the urban and rural areas.
The smart city is a connected city. In public safety, we have to work closely with our partners in fire, EMS, and the police department. So it's important that the three of the public safety agencies are able to connect together and take advantage of leveraging our resources and use the Internet of Things to communicate well with each other, share that information, especially when it comes to a crisis intervention type situation, anything that's going to involve multiple agencies deploying to one time, whether it be a natural disaster or some type of critical incident involving mass casualties.
In a smart city, you have all the systems connected, and then if you can connect it to the right analytics technology, you can increase unity of effort among city departments. You can save a lot of money because you have better visibility into what's really going on, particularly sensors on vehicles right now. That's an area that promises to free up a lot of wasted resources and then allow the cities to make better use of that to deliver more value to the citizens.
If you just think about the natural progression of that, making things smarter, getting advanced in network capabilities out on the different sensors and activities going on for the Smart Cities Initiative will lead to a much greater development of data sharing applications and applications that can actually take advantage of this wealth of data from the sensors that will be on the network and providing real-time updates to situations and events as they're happening.
Great, so I really hope that sets the stage for what we're going to talk about today is public safety uses of mobile data and applications. And as you can tell, there's already uses in the field today of using broadband, but what FirstNet is really trying to do is to create a unified nationwide platform so that all public safety users across the nation have consistent access to high-speed broadband. And so what we want to talk about with our panelists today, we have Commander Eli Reyes from Austin Police Department. He's the commander of the Fleet and Technology Division. He's had over 20 years of law enforcement and currently really active in promoting the use of mobile data and handheld devices across the department. We have Bill Schreier, who's from Washington State, but with the Seattle Police Department. He is the CIO there. He's also worked in the state capacity and is currently also the FirstNet Washington State point of contact. He has a law enforcement background as well. And our final speaker today is Todd Early. He's the Deputy Assistant Director with the Texas Department of Public Safety. And he has command over 27 different communications facilities. He's also on the FirstNet Advisory Committee on the Early Builders Program, of which there's one in Harris County here in Texas. So with that, what we'll do with this panel is we'll have have our presenters give a brief overview of how they're using technology and data applications in their work today. And then we'll open up for some questions and answers. And please feel free to ask questions at that time. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Commander Eli Reyes. Like she said, I'm the commander of the technology unit at the Austin Police Department. I've been the commander there for about 2 years. And the reason I got that job was because I was the rookie commander and no other commander wanted it. But I'm very fortunate to be in that position. It's been a great learning environment for me when it comes to technology and project management and budgeting. So I'm happy that I'm in that position, and there are a lot of technology solutions that have come to the forefront and that continue to come forth in the future. One of the things that we're working on here in Austin right now is, like many other cities around the country, we are getting a proposal for our body-worn cameras, and then we're also working on a proposal to issue all the officers smartphones. I think that right now we do have some officers that get cell phone stipends, mostly command staff and supervisors, but none of our first responding patrol officers are issued phones or cell phone stipends. And they're the ones that are in the field, and they're the ones who really need the technology in their hand. Of course, a lot of them have their own cell phones, so they end up using their own personal devices to conduct operations just because it's a matter of efficiency for them. And so that's a choice that they choose to make. And so some of the applications that we're currently using right now is all of the social media applications. Our public information office is very active in those. Nextdoor, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Periscope. We use all of those applications. And in addition to that, our law enforcement applications that we use are OmniLink. We use that. That's an application that our guys use to monitor high-risk offenders that are on ankle monitors. So they use the cell phone app to get notification if they go outside or into an area where they're not supposed to be. And that's immediate real-time notification. We also just recently launched about 4 months ago our Austin Police mobile application. And that mobile application is available for download by the community. And basically it's a one-stop shop for all of our citizens or anybody that's visiting Austin just to go in there. It has a lot of information about the police department. It has crime mapping information that show our CAD data on a map overlay, so you can get that information right in the palm of your hands. It also has information in there about how to find sex offenders, how to make a police report. It has a department directory. It does, the best thing about this application is it does have a two-way tipping platform in which citizens can submit tips to the police department. And those tips are submitted to our real-time crime center, which is monitored 24 hours a day. So if a citizen submits a tip using our mobile application, that tip immediately goes to our real-time crime center, and the lieutenant up there can look at the tip, he can read it, and he can determine whether that's something that needs to take immediate action and a call initiated or officer's dispatch, or if it's a follow-up investigation or a lead, he can forward that tip to the appropriate investigative unit. The best thing about that platform, it is a two-way tipping platform, so the lieutenant up there has the ability to respond to the tipster and continue to get updates if the tipster would like to continue to do that. It also has a geolocation feature built into it, and it can also attach photographs to their tip. So that's what we're giving to the citizens. Our goal in the future is to have a similar application for our officers, where the officers can click on an application and they have a one-stop shop in the palm of their hands. Many agencies use blue check or some other type of field identification for fingerprints. Currently, our agency has to take people down to the station to fingerprint them for identification purposes. It would be nice to be able to use fingerprint identification in the field to identify somebody if we don't know who they are. Also, to have officers be able to write tickets using their smartphone. Our e-ticket writer vendor is currently developing an application which should be released in the next couple of months so that we can go from a big electronic ticket writer to a mobile application, giving the violator the option to sign it digitally and email him the ticket, or we can print it to a Bluetooth printer. So what we really want to see in the future is having the FirstNet dedicated broadband for public safety to make all of these applications. And years ago, we talked about the mobile office inside of a patrol car. We really need to move towards a mobile office inside the palm of your hands. A lot of agencies are behind in technology. We currently use this thing right here, which I don't know if anybody's seen one of these recently, but this is what we call a pager. This is how we receive notifications from the department. It's a one-way messaging tool. There's no way to confirm that anybody ever got the message. So it would be nice to be able to send an SMS group text message to the whole department or a limited group of people, a SWAT call out or something else similar to that nature, and then the officer can get it, he can respond to it if he needs to, and you have the data to show that the message was sent and received. So that's some of the things that we're working on in Austin right now. And then at the end of the panel, if you guys have any specific questions about what we're doing, I'll be happy to answer those for you.
Thank you, Commander. I was madly taking notes about all the stuff that Austin is doing, because I think that that's pretty cool. Especially the citizen two-way tipster is phenomenal. We're going to get something like that in Seattle. So again, my name is Bill Schreier. I'm presently serving as the Chief Information Officer for the Seattle Police Department, and I'm also the FirstNet State Point of Contact for Washington. And here's the things that I'm going to talk about today. A little bit about why we're here, the Internet of First Responder things and public safety things, how this fits into smart cities, what I think the glue is for all of this, which is FirstNet, and then a few parting thoughts. And again, this is just a little bit of my background. I was a police patrol officer a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and I've been a teacher. I was the Chief Technology Officer for the City of Seattle at one point as well. And that, no offense to Leonard Nimoy and Mr. Spot, but the spot refers to the state point of contact. Each state has got a point of contact for FirstNet, 56 states and territories, and somebody did that statue right. You can go to a Mariners game, a baseball game, and get a bobblehead. You can't get Schreier bobbleheads yet. So, this ain't your grandpa's police department, the Seattle Police Department. Now that's an ancient police car. Oh, ancient is probably when I was a kid, so it's not all that old. Things are changing rapidly in law enforcement, as Commander Reyes talked about. Two things that cops hate, and actually everybody hates, is the way things are, and of course change. But we know that change is going to be coming to law enforcement and public safety and cities. Technology is rapidly developing. The question is how to embrace it. Here's one example. The 2016 version of the Miranda warning. You have the right to remain silent. Anything either of us says or does will be posted on YouTube within the hour. This is the reality in law enforcement. We've all seen these things where somebody takes a third-party view of police officers doing something. Typically, it's not something that is necessarily honorable, or that the cell phone video taker feels is honorable, and it's posted to YouTube. We've got to deal with this as technology marches on. So my first question here is, what are we trying to do here at the summit anyway? Dennis? Hello. What's the purpose of all this? The purpose of our lives is to be happy. That's why we're doing this technology stuff. That's why we're doing smart cities, the Internet of Things. For us, particularly in law enforcement and city government, we're talking about quality of life. What you see on the right there is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the very bottom, of course, is the physiological needs: food, water, warmth, and rest. Right above that is safety needs. It's hard for people to have good quality of life. It's hard for people to have happiness, if you will, unless they're safe and secure. This is the purpose of cities. This is why we have city governments and county governments. This is the purpose of a police department. Keep that in mind. The Internet of First Responder Things. So technology marches on. When I was a cop in the field, this is how I took reports. Pulled out my little wire-bound notebook, made notes about serial numbers and incidents and witness statements. Obviously, technology has changed. Here's how police work is done today. You know, and I got to admit, a pencil and a notebook is rock solid technology. A few years ago, we implemented a new records management system at the police department in Seattle, and we gave every officer a laptop computer. Well, I had a burglary at my house. A couple $1,000 worth of stuff was stolen. I left the side door open. So I called the police officer, and I had all my camera boxes and serial numbers. He comes out. I knew he had a laptop. I knew he had a new records management system. And what did he do? Pulled out his notebook. Because when you think about it, bringing a laptop into somebody's house, flipping it open, powering it up, and then getting into the records management system just doesn't work. This is rock solid technology. So in the future, with the Internet of First Responder things, this is how an officer might look, and it's one of the goals we're headed toward at the Seattle Police Department. Body-worn video to include all the back office technology, the storage, the video redaction. Commander Reyes talked about how Austin's moving forward with body-worn video. Seattle Police has got $1.8 million, including a Department of Justice grant, to implement this. Voice-enabled phones and other devices and apps. Think about it. Voice-enabled phones? What is a phone except voice-enabled? But today we've got Siri, right? Where you can actually talk and text to the phone. Why do we force police officers and others to type into a phone and type in a response to computer-aided dispatch or type a report when you can actually talk to your phone with voice-activated technology? On the lower right, smartphones and apps connected to a wireless network. Again, Commander Reyes talked eloquently about some of the apps that we want to have. We give every officer a digital camera, which they take photographs of a scene. Now, we also have a crime scene investigation team, detectives, but these are normal scenes. They come back to the station, they upload the photos to a digital evidence management system. Why don't we give them smartphones where they can take photographs of the scene on the smartphone, use an app, upload it automatically to our digital evidence management system, keeping the chain of evidence or chain of custody so that those photographs can be used in court. Wearable tech, health and environmental sensors. We need sensors, again, connected wirelessly, so all of a sudden you see the heart rate of a police officer spike. When I say you, I mean the real-time crime center or the 911 center. You know something's going on. Maybe the officer is in a foot chase, doesn't have time to actually call in something on the radio, but you monitor the health of the officer. This is especially important for firefighters. Firefighters that could be in a stressful situation or could be in trouble inside a house. And then maybe all this wearable tech and environmental sensors ought to be integrated into clothing, especially the bulletproof vest. And finally, in the upper left here, augmented reality and a heads-up display. I don't know about this, because if I was a police officer, I'm not sure I would want something other than glasses on my head. But why can't we, with augmented reality, actually be able to hold up a phone or another device to a premise and actually pull down all the information about that premise? Who owns it? When the last building and fire inspection was? Who might inhabit that premise? Have there been calls involving guns or weapons to that premise recently? We've got to give police officers and firefighters and child protective services workers information when they go walk up to a house in real time. This next slide is the technology-enabled connected vehicle. Similarly, our vehicles already are technology connected, but that can be improved. In-car video systems, Commander Reyes mentioned this. We have in-car video. I've got 1 petabyte, which has nothing to do with pets or cats. It's a petabyte, which is 1,000 terabytes or 1 million gigabytes of in-car video data. More than 3.8 million clips we've collected over the last 5 years. Why we keep it, that's a different story. Control and manage the vehicle via smartphone apps, voice-enabled tablet, in-car video apps, like I mentioned earlier. A dockable tablet computer, which can be used in investigations instead of a fixed computer in the car. The vehicle connects to air platforms, schools, and other external video feeds. We've got a lockdown in the school. you show up, you know that there's something going on in that school. Why can't the principal or someone in the school district be able to stream the video cameras from inside the school to the responders who are showing up, so they see in real time where a perpetrator might be, or a sex offender, or an active shooter? And then the integrated connected sensors for the vehicle health and occupant health, chem, bio, and nuclear. That's the connected vehicle. The challenge in all this is the technology. So I've got the Batman utility belt up here. How much stuff can we put on a cop? Even when I was a police officer, there was a lot of stuff hanging off the officer's utility belt. And how solid is that technology going to be? The Internet of Public Safety things. So that was the Internet of First Responder things. So if we expand this to the public safety, think about all the sensors we have in our environment today. Smoke alarms, burglar alarms. Obviously, almost everyone carries a smartphone or some sort of a phone. That's an interesting traffic signal, but we've got intelligent transportation signals where we try to automate and connect to smooth the flow of traffic. We've got AEDs, automated external defibrillators, that oftentimes will talk to you if you're a citizen and you're using it. Why can't they talk back so they know that if they've been taken off the wall and they're in use? And then in the lower left, we know that our vehicles are getting connected now wirelessly. The vehicles will start to talk to each other, and they will be talking back. All of these things are keeping citizens safe, and with permission ought to be available to police officers, firefighters, and paramedics via 911 or automatically connected. Internet of Public Safety things. And then we connect this back to smart cities, the purpose of this conference. And most of you have been to sessions already this week where you know what's going on with smart cities. You know the things that we're putting up. And I want to call your attention to the right side, the second thing down that says, note, most smart city technology is implemented and managed outside the police department. We don't want to turn our cities into a surveillance state, but gee, if there's a traffic camera available that could help police officers ought to be able to see it. If there's an electrical outage that's in a neighborhood, that's a public safety hazard. Police and fire and paramedics ought to know about that. So with permission, other departments ought to be able to share this information with law enforcement. The glue to all this is first step. How do we connect this stuff? We connect it with fiber optic cable and cell phones, a cellular network. They're not cell phones, but a cellular network. Now, people can see this or not, and I don't expect anybody in this room to recognize it. This is the Interstate 5. Interstate 5 is a major north-south interstate along the whole west coast, Los Angeles, San Diego to the Canadian border. In Skagit County, north of Seattle, it collapsed on May 23rd, 2013. The Friday night before Memorial Day. Worst possible time for this major corridor to collapse. And here's what emergency services broadcast. 1952 hours. Emergency services are advising that cell phones are no longer working. Well, why weren't cell phones working? Look at all those people there. What the heck were they doing? They're taking video. They're taking photographs. They're uploading to Facebook. They're tweeting about it. They're sending stuff to their friends. Maybe they're calling and wondering, is one of my loved ones in the water down there? This commercial network got overloaded. Here's something you'll never see in Austin and probably never see in Texas. Anybody recognize this? I shouldn't say never.
Should have pulled out my Dallas Cowboy picture.
Yeah, you should have. This is the Seahawks, Seattle Seahawks victory parade in February of 2014. About 500,000 people in downtown Seattle as the Seahawks returned from their victory. And here's the headline in the Seattle Times the next day. Cell use at Seahawks parade swamp wireless networks. One of my board members on the state is a fire chief who was in downtown Seattle with his family. They couldn't text. His wife couldn't even make a phone call on her cell phone because the cellular networks are overwhelmed. So, in many cases, we need real-time access. A month ago, on May Day, we had the anarchists march through Seattle, as they always do, put out 500 cops on the street, lots of bicycle officers. Things like, see that flare in the upper right photograph? Flares, rocks, Molotov cocktails being tossed. Now think about if you've got body-worn video and other devices on cops, or you've got video surveillance, and you have one cell site or one cell sector maybe serving that, it's going to rapidly overwhelm the commercial networks, especially when you consider citizens and residents around as well. So the solution to this is FirstNet, which Jeanette mentioned earlier. And FirstNet was created by Congress in 2014. They issued an RFP. They expect to sign a contract later this year. And they have a mission to develop a specific network, a fourth-generation wireless network, where police officers, firefighters, and other responders, electrical utility, water utility, private public safety folks as well, will have priority. Here's some parting thoughts. Public disclosure, one of my favorite people here. I'm going to PDR the SHIT out of the Seattle Police Department. PDR means public disclosure request, asking for video. And SHIT, I'm sure what he meant was super high intensity training. Couldn't have meant anything else. This is the sort of thing, we have a very open Public Records Act in Washington. We get PDR'd and we get the SHIT PDR out of us all the time. So we need to be open. We need to be open about what we're doing in police departments. And I apologize for the photograph. That's a few years ago there was a public campaign in Portland, Expose Yourself to Art. What I really meant was we need to expose our data in terms of things like data.seattle.gov or White House Police Data Initiative. You can go to data.seattle.gov and see almost every crime incident that has been reported in Seattle. You can see almost every 911 call that was reported in Seattle. That's pretty unusual for a police agency. When I say almost every, we do protect victims of domestic violence or sexual assault. We need to be open with our data. We need to be open. Commander Reyes is talking about how he's gone to many public meetings, going to public meetings and explaining to the public what we in law enforcement are doing. We also need to be open to an entire community of public safety responders. We think about paramedics and firefighters and police officers being responders, they're first responders. But look at that in the center. That's a lockdown in a school. When you've got kids in your charge and you're a teacher, you can be a first responder. We've seen first responders in school shootings. Those folks ought to be able to use FirstNet. Those folks ought to be able to talk directly to responding officers. And finally, privacy. In all of this, we, as city officials and law enforcement officials, need to be respectful of our privacy. I'm not a believer in facial recognition. This is me personally, running all the video through facial recognition to try and determine who's in it. Against the mugshot database, that's okay. People have a known arrest, but not generally facial recognition. And finally, we need to remember the goal of this, all this technology we're doing. What we're trying to do is improve the quality of life of our people and our citizens in cities and counties to help keep them happy and healthy and live fruitful lives. That's it.
Now we got the picture of Bill up there. Now we're good. Thanks, Bill. Bill and I get to travel the country quite a bit talking about these initiatives and the technology and the things that it's going to bring to public safety. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about it from the state perspective and some of the things that we're doing in Texas. And a lot of folks say, well, why does public safety need their own dedicated broadband network? And so you start thinking about all the things that our first responders have gone into. One example is this right here. 2008, the hurricanes that hit East Texas. This is what the roadways look like, trying to evacuate millions and millions of folks out of there. true picture. Well, when that happens, public safety and anybody out there is probably not going to get a connection to the commercial network. And let me say that the commercial carriers are great partners of public safety. They help in any way they can. But the fact of this, you look at the Super Bowl parades, you look at all those things, our first responders, when they go into those areas, cannot get connectivity. And you really dig down into this, you see an EMS crew right here on the roadway trying to work on somebody. This is really when we started thinking about this in the state of Texas, and really it started in Harris County. And at that time, they realized, public safety, we talk a lot about mission critical radio, right? You need that radio to communicate, and we will need that for forever. But that's really when they realized that data became mission critical. You have to have that connectivity, and when you have situations like this, you have the floods, you have the planned events, everybody's on social media, and the first responders can't get connectivity. And that's really what this network is being built for. Public safety, the major national association of public safety came together and lobbied Congress for this spectrum to build out this network for public safety. First time you've really seen police, fire, EMS, and many others come together unified, and probably the biggest win, in my opinion, in public safety was getting the spectrum to build this out. In August of 2014, Texas worked with FirstNet and had an agreement with them to build this out as one of the 5 early builders. You heard Jeanette talk about that a little bit before. Texas is one of the 5 across the nation that's been approved to build this out ahead of what FirstNet's doing in the Harris County area. There's a site also at Kyle Field, and then we have a mobile site. And what that mobile site's really going to bring us is the ability to pull that anywhere during a planned event. So right here in Austin, Texas, we'll be able to pull that in the middle of ACL. We can take it out to the F1 races. We can take it to all of the things where they have an enormous amount of folks, and be able to have public safety utilize that so they can use handheld devices, they can have situational awareness, they can communicate when many times they wouldn't be able to communicate because the commercial network is so congested. These are the 5 things that we agreed to work with FirstNet on and the other early builders, and what those are is lessons learned. So the things during the build out of this, such as what they're doing in Harris County, to work with FirstNet to say, hey, here's all the things that worked right. Here's all the things that didn't work, so that they can take those lessons learned, and those will help states as well, regardless of a state decision, whether to opt in or opt out or what that is. Take those lessons learned and provide that and put it into the network build out all across the nation for public safety. The agreement that we have is up to 93 sites in Harris County. Currently they have 18 sites deployed, mainly along the port and up the I-45 corridor. I'll talk about that here in a minute. They have another 19 sites that are in the planning and deployment phase of that. We have one site at Kyle Field in Brazos County, and then we have the mobile site as well. So this is the current build out in Harris County, which is the 18 sites. And really you see it's covered the port and then up the I-45 corridor. That is for evacuation, so that you can have coverage during those evacuations. So that was kind of their phase 1 deployment. Their second deployment, which is going to include up to 37 sites that you see here, will provide mobile coverage inside Harris County. And so the difference between this early builder project and the other 4 across the nation is the county commissioners in Harris County invested $5.8 million into the continued build out of this prior to what FirstNet's doing, so that they could get lessons learned, so that they could provide that infrastructure and that connectivity to their public safety first responders. All that looks great, right? Covers the entire county, 37 sites, not bad. But that's mobile coverage. So you start talking about handheld coverage and how that's provided inside buildings and handheld coverage. That's what these sites start looking like. So that's the reason they need up to 93 sites in that area. So typically it takes more sites for this technology than what land mobile radio actually takes. And this is indicative of their 93 total sites that they hope to have, and which will provide indoor coverage, handheld coverage, and those type of things. So I mentioned earlier the one site in Brazos County. The Sheriff's Office in Brazos County has completely deployed all of their vehicles with this technology within vehicle modems, and doing a lot of testing and and their lieutenant the other day actually made a statement. He said, we're now dependent upon this type of connectivity. And so it's really good to see some of the real life use cases that are actually working on this, right? We've been talking about it for many years. Now we're actually getting some real life use cases in some of the incidents and things that are happening. One of those that you see here is a armed standoff that they have. Actually came in as domestic disturbance, actually turned into a 6-hour standoff with the person inside. And what they were able to do is take their vehicles and through the in-car cameras, able to stream that across this Band 14 network and put it into the command center. So now the folks in the command center, their command staff, and the other ones were able to see the view of this video. So they had a 360-degree view of this residence, and that actually traversed this network in the site that they had here. The second was just last month when they had 3 tornadoes touch down in the city of Bryan, and all the flooding that happened after that. And they had 6 of their patrol cars stationed at these flooded high water areas, and were actually able to utilize this network to stream that back into the sheriff's command. And what you saw in some of that was also some inundation of the commercial cellular network. And so they were dropping some of the ones that were on that, and the ones that were on the Band Class 14 network actually stayed up. So they were able to effectively send that to command center and the command staff that were in there. Typically, the decisions that are made on disasters and things, or the videos that we get in public safety prior to this, have always been mostly from the news media. When they're on a scene of a disaster, being able to see that on the television. We have folks in emergency operations centers that were using that video. Now, we in public safety have the video ahead of time and able to traverse that network and actually see some of the things. These are just a couple of incidents where this network is actually being utilized. One of the planned events, you saw the planned event Key Learning Condition over there. One of the planned events that we just got through doing, and they did it in Harris County, was the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. You think, well, why a livestock show and rodeo? When you actually look at that, it's a 20-day event, over 2.6 million visitors to that event this year. It's 20 days in length. So you really think about that, it's bigger than the Super Bowl. They have 1,000 first responders, volunteers that work, police, fire, EMS, volunteering, parking things, work all the law enforcement events. And so what they did was deployed 100 devices on these folks working these events, and they were able to really capture a lot of great lessons learned from that, the things that worked, the things that didn't work different. I actually went up there and talked to the folks on the ground, and one of the things that, some of the things they told us that we love having the handheld devices. We love having situational awareness. Now we know where folks are at. We know where incident is at. They did some secondary voice, and we're able to have some secondary voice and one-on-one talk groups to things that may have not have been an actual mission-critical event. But the thing you have to remember is even with those, even if it's a non-mission critical event, and let's say you have somebody out there parking buses or parking vehicles, as soon as something comes through, whether it's a fight in progress, whether it's shots fired, no matter what it is, it automatically then becomes mission critical. So everything that we do with this network, everything we deploy with this network, has to be mission critical, because when that officer, that firefighter, that EMS person takes it in their hand, it right then becomes mission critical. This is just a picture of where we had one of the mobile sites and how it went back toward the stadium. This is some of the drive testing that they were able to do. The green shows where they had coverage inside the area, public safety, first responders, everything that's on there. They had one cow deployed, over 100 devices deployed. And you see some of the applications and solutions they used there. Situational awareness was a big one. Push to talk was a big one. The ability to communicate, integration into the mission critical land mobile radio, a lot of different applications. And then they had a staff team that was deployed to support it. Just a few pictures of some of the applications and things that they actually utilized there. And some of their lessons learned. Network connectivity, all the way from the cow through the backhaul, ensuring you don't have single points of failure, that constant connectivity, because when you put that device on that first responder, their life depends on it. And it's got to be up and it has to be working. And so you have to know that. Device market maturity. Typically, public safety has hardened devices. They're very well tested that have come out of this. Now we're really going into what we as citizens and the public actually utilize into some of these type of devices. But when you put them in that mission critical environment, they have to work. They have to work in a mission critical setting where you have ambient noise, you have the other things that are coming out of that. So there's still some maturity that has to happen this from device testing, device hardening, deployment into a public safety environment. Application maturity. I think you're going to really see an explosion in public safety applications that you've never seen before. Typically, we utilize, even today, some of the things that the citizens utilize. But I think you're going to see an explosion of applications for public safety and things that we've never even thought about before. And you will see some type of application store within FirstNet for public safety and the things. So we tell everybody, be innovative. Start thinking about what you have now that needs to be integrated. Start thinking about what you really need in the future and how that's going to be integrated into this network to make you be able to respond faster, safer, smarter. These are just some of the other considerations that we're gaining out of the use of this network. Informal key learning conditions, all the things that we hadn't even thought about when it comes to floodplains, when it comes to hardening of sites, when it comes to having generators, all the other things. And then down into kind of some of the IT-centric things that I probably think is, in my opinion, the biggest challenges we have with this, and that is local control. When you respond into an incident, and it's a massive incident, you have to have the ability to, through parameter settings, help change some of the priority levels, because every incident's different. One incident, law enforcement may need priority. The next incident, fire may need priority. So having the ability to change some of those attributes in what you do. And then also ICANN. How do you give folks access? How do you vet that access? Once they have access, what do they have access to? How do you control those things and make sure it's a secure network? Those are some of the challenges that we're working on at a national level, on the rollout of this, to be able to effect the ability for public safety to utilize this network. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I think we had a really nice array of different types of scenarios of currently what's on the field, or what are we doing right now in the future, and what our vision is for where we want to go with having high-speed data and data-driven analytics in public safety technology. So some of the themes we had here were connectivity, real-time information sharing, data-driven activities. And so, while we're here at a Smart Cities Conference, I'm just going to kick it off with more questions, and then after that we'll open up the floor for any questions that the audience has. So we're here at the Smart Cities Conference, and we've heard a lot about how public safety needs for technology are growing. So what kind of recommendations would you give city governments, state governments, of how they should consider public safety needs as they're considering building these smart cities?
I'll go ahead and start. I would say you need to build for the future, and you need to plan for the future. And with FirstNet coming on board, it's important that we get ahead of that, and that officers get used to the technology and using it. So that way, when FirstNet does go live, that we've already vetted out the applications that are going to be used, what different uses we have for that mobile technology, so that we just make a simple transition from a private network into the FirstNet realm. That way, it just makes the transition easier. Officers can come up with ideas in the next year or two about building out these mobile applications, because some of the best information you're going to get is from the officers and the EMS and people that are in the field that are actually using stuff, and then developing ideas for how we can implement better mobile technology to make public safety better for everyone.
I'd have a couple of pieces of advice. One is stop and take a breath. There are fads in city and county and state government, just like there are fads and everything else, fads in dress code, for example. The latest fad seems to be this body-worn video technology after Ferguson. But before you go out and buy a whole bunch of body-worn video cameras, think about some things. Think about, will a police officer have that body-worn video camera inside someone's home, and will they be victimized twice as the police officer walks through the home and all that's recorded on video and may be subject to FOIA or public disclosure? Police officers see people at their worst, a domestic violence situation where marriages are breaking up. That could be on video. Think about the policies and engage stakeholders and think about what you do before you deploy technology. The second thing is look to the private sector. You look to UPS and FedEx and everybody else who's got a mobile force. What do they give their people? They give them devices, tablet computers, and smartphones. Why don't we give city workers, cops and paramedics, smartphones and tablet computers first, just like the private sector gives technology to its mobile field force?
I'll just say that a lot of the things that are happening in the Smart Cities Initiative, and a lot of the things that are being deployed across cities, even outside the public safety environment, will be able to be leveraged by public safety, whether it's sensors of flood areas that are out there that can keep someone from driving off into a flood environment. Heads up notification that the floods are coming down and going to be crossing that area to keep them out of that area. Whether it's control of traffic lights when they're trying to respond to an emergency incident, having the ability to have sensors on that can get them through those traffic. The fire guys having the ability, heads up, video of a fire that they're responding to, go ahead and put it into the apparatus and show that to them so they know what they're going to deploy into. A lot of those things, sensor driven, a lot of the technologies, infrastructure, as you build out infrastructure and the things you do, it's going to be able to be leveraged by public safety. And there's a connectivity and a nexus there, I think, between both of those initiatives and efforts.
Excellent point. Excellent point. I think sometimes it seems like cities are so driven on either just efficiencies of operation that they miss these natural synergies that should be happening, which is part of the greater mission and what the public service should be about. I have a question, please, and if you could identify yourself.
Sure. My name is Alex Long. I work for one of the DoD funding agencies. My question is, in your conversations with your state and local governments, how has appetite been, or how are the conversations gone about funding the acquisition of some of these key technologies, especially keystone ones like mobile phones?
I'll tell you from the state perspective, in the discussions that I have, part of my responsibility is to reach out to local entities and others. There's both sides of it. You have the folks today who utilize data connection. They have data connection to their mobile data terminals in their vehicle. When this is deployed, they're going to still have a choice, and it's another provider. They can choose to do what they do today. They can choose to have this dedicated public safety broadband network, or they can choose to do nothing. So they're really taking what they're doing today and putting it on this should that happen. But you also have the complete opposite of that, and we here have, our volunteer fire agencies across the state are much more than the paid volunteer fire folks, right? These are the folks that are having pancake suppers and spaghetti dinners to buy radios for their apparatuses. They don't have the money for that. So there has to be some thought process put into that as to, how do you give them some type of subsidy to be able to afford that? And I think we see that across. So the message that we deliver from the state point of contact perspective is this has to be affordable to public safety or it will not be adopted. And I think they know and understand that. We can't pay a lot more than we're paying today, and we've got to help those folks who can't afford it today.
I would say that, in government, you're always trying to get the bang for your buck. And when we talk about, you specifically asked about, the funding for cell phones for officers. With that, you're going to have a time savings efficiency that you can calculate into that. And with the way that we have shortage of officers across the country, anything that we can do to help the officers do their jobs in the field more efficiently and more effectively is going to free them up faster and quicker to be able to go to the next call for service. So with that, you're going to have some time savings. In addition, a lot of agencies and a lot of governments do give cell phone stipends to their employees. Well, they have to buy a personal cell phone plan with a carrier. With government contracting, you can get a much lower price point than if I go to AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile to go get a cell phone plan. I'm not going to get the same price that they can leverage for larger government type pricing. So there's two different ways you can look at it. One, by leveraging the ability to use government contracting to lower the service, and then two, the time savings that you're going to get and realize that cost benefit at the end of the year and just time savings from the officer's perspective.
And I do just second that. Do the business case, and I think you can rapidly figure out the time savings, but also the money savings. Seattle Police Department's got a $300 million a year budget, but 82% of that is personnel, is the civilian and police officers of the department. Everything else has to fit into 18%, vehicles, police stations, smartphones, and everything else. But there's a good cost benefit to be realized.
I'm Carrie Connor, City of Austin Chief Innovation Officer, and I wonder if you guys have thought about the usability. As soon as we start connecting, we have a lot more data, a lot more bells and whistles. We're doing a project with Emergency Medical Services, and I did a ride-along last weekend, and boy, those guys and gals have just the screens that they're working with, the buttons on the truck that they're working with, the data streams that are coming in. How do we think about not overwhelming our officers and first responders by doing some intentional design around the information streams that are coming in? Do you have any thought about any approaches around user experience design for them?
Absolutely, and I think our public safety vendors, who I will not name, because every police department hates its records management system, I don't know where they get their usability. Do they hire geeks specifically to write applications for geeks? And I'll mention a couple of things. Single sign-on. We can't have officers fumbling with different logins for different applications, even on a screen, much less a smartphone. Single sign-on to all the applications, but secure single sign-on. Most of you probably know that the FBI requires criminal justice information systems that two-factor authentication, not just a login and password, but maybe bringing a badge close to the phone or something as well. So single sign-on. The usability is a huge one, not just the screen usability, but I mentioned voice-enabled apps. Why do we make cops and firefighters and others type reports when a lot of that could be dictated and could be automatically translated into text? So, but you're absolutely right, and I think that major cities like Austin or Seattle ought to have a usability lab or something similar where actual field workers, police officers, electrical workers, Seattle is an electric utility just like Austin, can actually come in and test things before we deploy.
And I'll also say there's a couple of things that come to mind. One of those is this is going to be 20 megahertz of spectrum, which is a lot of spectrum. But as with anything, you can quickly fill it up depending upon what you're doing. So there's a few things that come to my mind with that, and some of the discussions that we're having at the national level is data mining, right? There's going to be so much data coming in that you can very quickly overload somebody, and what happens when you overload them? They ignore it, right? So how do you mine that data at a national level? And there's some work being done by APCO and others and discussions on that. The other thing is prioritizing, right? And that's the importance of ICAM. The things that we're doing are prioritizing roles, attributes of responders, so that based on your role and the attributes of what you have, you may be able to do certain things, but certain things that take a lot of bandwidth, you may not be able to do unless you're in a certain type of scenario. And I think having that ability to prioritize some of the data and video and other things that are going on there are extremely important. And I'll close by saying, from a city perspective, if you don't know your state point of contact out there, get to know them. Every state has one. That they're reaching out to local entities, others, and to have these type of discussions. It may seem far off, but the planning of this is now that the requirements are being submitted to FirstNet. They will deliver a plan to each state in the nation, probably in the middle of next year. They've already put out an RFI. They plan to award it, they say, in November of this year, and they will have a partner. And now's the time for planning across this. So now's the time to make your voice heard and work with your SPOCs and others out there to what you need at the city level as well, but also for your first responders in your area.
Thank you.
I'll just finish it off by just saying I think that the vehicle designs have come a long way in the last couple of years, and the manufacturers of vehicles understand the importance, and they're specifically designing and building vehicles for public safety. And so integrating that technology into the existing vehicle when it comes off the line will help to focus the technology in positioning in the vehicle to where it's not going to be a distraction when the officer or when a paramedic driver is operating the vehicle.
We're coming up on our time, so let me just start our closing out by saying, a lot of what we're doing here with having bigger access to data is how do we turn just data into actionable information? And that actionable information then gets processed through applications, analytics, and then gets used to, then goes to the human interface. So, how are we bringing all those things together to make a better, more cohesive, responsible, reactive, and efficient public safety environment? So I'm going to ask other panelists if you have any closing thoughts on smart cities and public safety. I think we had a great list of examples and people here today to ask how could this actually become a complete sort of system for the benefit of communities.
I'll just close out by saying I talked about your requirements of getting to know your SPOC. but as well as it's help us get the word out, specifically to your first responders and others in the area, because there's a huge education and outreach effort that actually has to happen to this. Most states have a team that can come out and have those briefings, but now's the time to get involved, and from the planning perspective, if you want input in that, to make sure that message is heard.
I would just encourage you, especially if you live in Austin or you're a visitor that's nearby, to just go to the App Store, whatever device you're using, and download the Austin Police mobile app, and you can look, see firsthand what type of technology that we're utilizing and what we put in the hands of our citizens to be able to communicate back and forth with the police department and services that we're providing.
And I'll close up by echoing something that Todd and Eli said. Todd said apps. There'll be an explosion of apps. That there's got to be an app for that, and there will be apps for that. Tremendous potential over the next few years. And then Commander Reyes was talking about the app, which I think is phenomenal. We can't put enough cops on the street to keep people safe. Seattle's got 1,300 cops, 650,000 people. Everybody in the city has got to be part of public safety. Everybody in a city has got to participate. And things like the app that you guys have done enable that.
All right, well, thank you very much. We appreciate your participation.
So